Today I'm telling a story from the perspective of an angel, Gabriel. Gabriel chuckled as he waited in the temple. Zechariah would not believe his ears. Humans never did. Look at Abraham and Sarah. When they got the news, well, Abraham practically fell on his face laughing. As for Sarah, she'd have hit the dirt too if she hadn't held on to the tent flap. She'd wheezed and laughed until tears streamed down her faded cheeks. And after all, it was funny. Sarah with her hair going gray and Abraham with his wrinkles, and everything they knew about life said it wasn't possible because old people don't have children. God knew it was the joke of the year, and God told them to name their son for laughter. Oh yes, the joke never grew old, never grew stale. Humans would get to thinking that something wonderful was out of reach, totally impossible, and God would drop it in their laps. Oh, there he came. It was Zechariah's turn to tend to the holy duties in the temple. Zechariah! Hey, Zechariah! Guess what? It was so hard to keep his voice firm, to keep from spilling chuckles between every word. You know what, Zechariah? You and Elizabeth have been good and holy. Gabriel paused for an eternal second to contain his mirth. Indeed, the old man and the aging woman were good, very good, and their faith in God was strong. They had wanted only one thing more, and now they would have it. Hey, Zechariah, God is pleased with you. The prayer of your heart has been answered. Elizabeth is going to have a baby, and you are going to be happy. There, he managed to get the words out, and now he shook with laughter while he watched disbelief crowd into the old man's face. And the funny thing was the news got even better than this. And guess what, Zechariah? Your child is already chosen to fulfill a great task for the Lord. Many, many people will come back to God because of him. He will get people ready for the Lord's coming. That was the message, the grand and glorious thing that was being dropped into Zechariah's lap. And he didn't believe it. We're too old, Zechariah managed to stammer. We're just too old. I am Gabriel, who stands in God's presence, and I was sent to tell you this good news. Gabriel tried to look stern, but twinkles of glee escaped him nonetheless. He would give Zechariah a gift of a quiet time in which to ponder the possibilities of what was wonderful. Gabriel announced, but since you have trouble believing, you will be speechless until the promise comes true. Oh, some days Gabriel enjoyed his job more than other days. The old man would be silent until words would burst forth at the naming of his son. Zechariah left the temple and was unable to talk. He motioned with his hands, and puzzlement and amazement was on his face. People said he'd had a vision. For himself, he wasn't completely sure. Perhaps he'd lost his mind. Yet hope carried him home to his wife. Rumbles of merriment traveled through heaven at the news. Elizabeth was expecting a child. A child at her age? Imagine that. Gabriel could feel the surging mirth like a tide rising. And a few months later, there came another message to carry, this time to a small village in the Galilean hills. Mary, hey Mary, he whispered. She was a peasant girl at her prayers, and Gabriel laughed to think how God had chosen the small and the weak through which to work. It was so splendidly different from what everyone expected. Peace be unto you, he said a little louder. The Lord is with you, and God has blessed you. Oh dear, the girl was frightened. Don't be afraid, he quickly told her. It was a ridiculous thing to say, and he knew it. He and the angels always said it, though it was the silliest thing to say. Why would people stop being afraid just because he told them to? For a minute, Gabriel could say nothing. So much hinged on this moment. And he was caught this time between laughter and tears. It was funny, so hilariously funny. And yet, like many such jokes, sorrow was so close to the joy, it was difficult sometimes to know where the line divided them. The world needed this so much, though there might be a terrible cost. You will conceive and bear a child, he told her. He will be called the Son of God, and he shall be a king, and his kingdom shall never end. She blinked and shook her head as if to be certain she was awake. Gabriel couldn't keep a smile from curving his lips. Oh, how he enjoyed his work. How can this be? She asked. Indeed, how was it possible? Even Gabriel didn't know how God could dwell in human form. But Gabriel did not need to understand. It was enough to know that God could do it. The Spirit of God will make it possible, he whispered through his joy. She hung her head and was silent. Gabriel held his breath, waited. God had chosen her, but she would not be forced to this destiny. She must decide as well. And Gabriel knew that people sometimes ran away, even from God's good things. It was part of the tragic comedy of human life. And if Mary was as intelligent as she looked, she surely knew that her decision would bring difficult days along with the good. Your cousin, he said, your cousin Elizabeth was thought to be barren, but now she has conceived. Remember that nothing is too wonderful for the Lord to accomplish. Human seconds were nothing to Gabriel, who had lived for eons, but now they stretched into eternity. Finally, slowly, Mary looked up, her lips firm with decision. Let it be as God wills. And Gabriel laughed, and the merriment of heaven swelled, and the stars prepared their welcome. The angels practiced a song about peace and goodwill. Amen.